Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name's Joey Weaver. He's Mike McDaniel. Mike, week 2 is upon us. How you doing? You ready to go?
Live late night, baby.
We are live, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. It is about 11:30 on Wednesday, September the 4th. We are live again, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. Appreciate we got a couple folks here late night with us in the chat, leaving some comments, joining in the discussion. Really appreciate those folks. If you're not here right now and you want to be with us later, go find us, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. You will be notified when we are going to go live here, and you can join in the discussion as well as we preview these weeks, as we recap these games. We would love to have you join in and kind of give your feedback, give your ways that you're looking at these games, ask some questions, that kind of thing. So shout out to the folks that are here tonight. Hope we see you here in the future if you're not here with us tonight. Mike, as we talk about YouTube, we are aiming for 500 subscribers this season. I need to mention this before I forget it because, Lord knows I will, and producer Scott is not here to, keep us in line tonight. So we are aiming for 500 subscribers this year. If you have been listening for a few weeks, we mentioned a couple weeks ago we were at like a little over 300. We are already up to 354. You guys are killing it. Hitting that subscribe button, finding folks to hit it for us. Really appreciate that. We've gotten 30 more subscribers since we last did this last week. Some of the folks that joined, Jordan Brock, Head Wilder, Josh Daniel, Josh Daniel, Ernst Pierre, excuse me, Bobby Mueller, Charles Williams, and even a guy named Brian Swanson. Sounds familiar to me. Shout out to the old Georgia Tech DU fraternity. Shout out to Brian. We really appreciate the folks hitting the subscribe button. Does a lot for us. If we get to that 500 mark, that is a big deal for us and the ability to kind of continue building this community. So appreciate the folks doing that. If you have not done it yet, please do. We would really, really appreciate it. It takes nothing from you, and it does everything for us. So thank you to the folks that do that. Make sure that you hit the like button. Make sure you share us. Really, a great sense of homework here would be to find one ACC fan in your life that needs to know about this podcast. Go find them. You're a Virginia fan and you know a Wake Forest fan, or you're a Florida State fan and you know a Miami fan. Share the podcast, please. We would really appreciate that. That would do a ton for us, Mike.
It would. Appreciate everybody who continues to subscribe, and we're Joey and I have been doing this for a long time now. This show, we have really been picking up some traction here, is what I would say over the last year and a half, effectively. And a big part of it has been some of the video stuff we've been doing, opening up the YouTube channel. We talk about producer Scott a lot. He has been a gigantic part of this growth, so be remiss to not mention that. We don't give him... I feel like we give him a lot of credit on this podcast, and we still don't give him enough. So I just want to get that out here. He's editing and pushing stuff and the sponsorship stuff. He's sending emails out. We're getting responses back. There might be some new stuff coming soon, hopefully. Some stuff in the pipeline we're working on. So
could be. Scott's
been driving a lot of stuff in the background, and even though you don't see him on the show here tonight, I just want to give him a shout out.
Absolutely. Shout out producer Scott every time. Mike, we have week 2 games to preview, but before we can do that, we have one more week 1 game that we have not yet recapped. Should we touch on that real quick?
Dear God, Florida State.
Labor Day night, Boston College 28, the number 10 Florida State Seminoles 13, in a game that honestly wasn't that close. A couple things here, first of all, Boston College, I think, first of all, give them credit. They went out there and just for 4 quarters basically just beat that ass, right? Like just at the point of attack, in the trenches. Boston College is the better team all night. Now, some of that probably credit to Boston College. Some of that, Florida State, man. I don't know if there's a motivation problem. I don't know if there was a hangover coming back from Europe. I don't know if there's a little bit of some Q word that we could get into here already, but like That did not look like a well-prepared team in this game. And that's, they looked worse to me than they did in Dublin. And so for a team that, again, I don't want to make this totally about Florida State and not at all about Boston College, but like for a team that started the season top 10 and now they're 0-2 and they've kind of become the laughingstock of the entire country, it feels a little bit like this is about Florida State of like, this is unraveling quickly.
2 standalone games will do that.
Mm-hmm.
You had
in front of God and everyone, both times.
You were a standalone game twice. That's tough. And then you look worse the second time. And we talked about this recapping the Ireland game against Georgia Tech, where it was like Georgia Tech looked good, Florida State looked bad. Which one kind of wins out? And the answer could, of course, be both. And we mentioned that with the Georgia Tech recap, and you're mentioning that now, Joey, with Boston College. Yes, Boston College looked good on Labor Day night against Florida State, but also Florida State looked really, really bad once again. And I agree with you. They looked worse Labor Day night than they looked against Jackets in the opener. And DJU, buddy, like, hit the broadside of a barn, please. I don't know. Between him and Connor Wegman watching the Notre Dame Texas A&M game on Saturday night, like, for the love of God, guys, hit a throw in the flat. I mean, guys are running wide open. You're just missing them. I mean, and Boston College defense.
He had to throw shortly before halftime to the corner of the end zone.
Dude.
Receiver wide ass open. Like, I could have made that throw, and he threw it like off the bricks on the wall of the stadium. Like, dude, come on.
Not even close. And not even really like under that much duress. Just took the snap, and literally it was almost like it was a corner route, and he was running wide open, and you just missed him.
Yeah,
missed him. I don't know, man.
And then he had some where he was like completely on target, hit receivers in the hands, and they were just dropping passes. Like,
yeah,
what a mess.
Yeah. The other thing too is, like, we're going to get into a discussion here in a minute, and I don't want to spend too much time on this tonight. Maybe this is something for like a Q&A episode when we have a little bit more time. But, like, I think we're going to realize here soon that guys are going to be very similar to like the NFL or Major League Baseball or whatever, the NBA, pro sports. Guys are going to be left in longer than they should because they're being paid a certain amount of money. And I think that's especially going to be the case for transfers into a program, right? Because, I mean, obviously you pay for guys to retain them on your own roster, but I think we're going to see it more with guys you're paying for out of the portal where, we just paid this player X amount of money and he's really underperforming, but we are paying him X amount of money. He needs to figure it out. At what point do you pull the plug and say he's not going to figure it out? It's a dead investment. It's a sunk cost, and just move on. And that's a question I have about DJ. And I think it's going to be a while before we get to that point. But if we're like in mid-October and Florida State's got like 4 losses already, maybe just play Brock Glenn.
I was saying that in the middle of the third quarter. Like,
maybe just play Brock Glenn.
Brock Glenn played the ACC championship game, and I'll say he won that game, which that's really doing a lot of work with that sentence. But
I was going to say, yeah.
But he didn't look this bad, right? Like, and there was a little bit of chatter of like, well, are we like? I remember early in the offseason, it was like, are we sure that this is DJU's job? And it was like, they're going to give Brock Glenn a chance to win the job, and like they think highly of him. If you think that highly of him, and you're watching DJU throw the ball everywhere except to his receivers, put Brock Glenn in the game. Like, what are we doing? This was a little bit mind-numbing for me to watch, at least on offense. Is like, this does not only does this not look like a top 10 offense, this looks like one of the 3 or 4 worst offenses in the ACC right now. Like, they look awful on offense, and that's before we talk about the front 7 on defense and just how just completely inept they were in Boston College, absolutely abusing them all night long. This was total system failure from Florida State as far as I'm concerned, Mike.
Shout out Pete Thamel, man. Pete Thamel, before the Week 0 game, was talking about how Florida State had the best defensive line in college football. And, man, those agents were hitting up Pete Thamel, being like, please squeeze us in on game day. Please squeeze us in on game day. Buddy, this isn't even like a top 5 defensive line in the ACC. It's just simply not. Closer to the bottom than the top.
Yeah.
So let's chill out with that for a minute. A lot of people were lying about this defensive line. To be fair to Pete Thamel, and I'm dunking on Pete Thamel here, and it's a little needless, but like, to be fair to Pete Thamel, this defensive line on paper looks a lot better than it's shown through 2 games. I mean, they've been atrocious. They've been really, really bad. And the expectation was that they would be better. They've been awful. Georgia Tech had their way. Boston College had their way. There are a lot of teams on the schedule that are coming up that can run the football, especially in ACC play, that could give Florida State a ton of trouble, regardless of how DJU's playing. I think the bigger issue for Florida State, actually, and look, there's blame to be shared all around, but I think the bigger issue for Florida State in 2 games has been their defense. Ironically, for as bad as DJU has been, lacking playmakers on offense to kind of go along with DJ hand in hand, but like the defense now through 2 games has been horrendous. The tackling is horrible. They're in the right spot and they're just missing tackles. Are they practicing? Is Alex Grinch the coordinator now? I have a lot of questions.
I don't know if their linebackers are in the right spot. I mean, the broadcast is basically pointing out they're just running counter all day, and the linebackers are running themselves out of position the whole game. I mean, it's a lot of what Georgia Tech did. Boston College, honestly, it seems like they watched that Georgia Tech Florida State game from a week ago, and were like, "Oh, we can do that," and just basically copied the game plan. And this was wild to me to watch. That Florida State just had nothing here in a home game with their crowd. And I mean, if you saw they did the 2-minute timeout, not the 2-minute warning, because we don't want to get we don't want to get DMCA'd or whatever it is by the NCAA for that.
Yeah, the
2-minute timeout in the 4th quarter, they came back and there was like a Sports Center with Scott Van Pelt promo, and then they did like an aerial shot going back into the stadium. It was empty, man. Like the fans quit on this game so hard so early. This game was wild to me. That this went as poorly as it did, and I'm stunned that Florida State is in as bad a spot as they are. The thing that came to my mind was, and I asked, I think it was Cam that I asked in the preview for Miami about any concerns around a mercenary mindset for a team that is so heavily based on transfers. How many of those guys are really truly bought in on the success of the team versus how many of them are bought in on the success of themselves and just selling themselves to the NFL, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And this is a situation where I'm starting to ask questions with Florida State. That is, it's worked really well for a couple of years with the transfer thing, but this year it seems like it's completely reversing course as far as I can tell.
It does seem that way, and it's getting to the point where well-informed college football people like Josh Pate, who big fan of his show, podcast, YouTube show, is mentioning that Florida State has to get back to their identity in recruiting. And then I think it's fair to say that we've criticized Clemson for maybe diving into that too much and not taking as many transfers. So the answer is always somewhere in the middle. I think Josh is right. I think Florida State needs to be less heavily reliant on transfers to be impact players as soon as you bring them in. I've had the same criticism about Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman, particularly at quarterback. But they've done a pretty good job recruiting, obviously. So that's kind of the catch-22 with it. You got to build your program, but you got to augment with the portal. I think that's the way it needs to be done. And Florida State did have some good players on the roster that were not portaled in, right, off of last year's team. Obviously, the difference makers on offense, and then Jared Verse defensively. There were some star players that were transfer portal guys, but there were a lot of key contributors last year that were not, that were high school recruits. So happy medium. It's a regression to the mean thing, mainly because they've missed on quarterback, right? You knew that this was you knew that this was DJ, right? Like, you knew that this is the guy. I saw that comment. I was about to bring it up. You knew that this was the guy that, had the track record at Clemson and looked so-so at Oregon State, had, half the year looked really, really good. Half the year looked really kind of mediocre. And this is what he is. He's just kind of up and down. He's going to have games where he looks like a 5-star and games where he looks like a 2-star. That's how he is. It's been his entire career. So,
DJU relative to expectations is a whole other discussion. Again, I mean, he seems like the guy who's throwing 103 in high school and walks like 3 out of the 4 batters that he faces because he just can't throw it in the strike zone kind of thing. Like, just bonkers.
Mark Appel,
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Will Secor, by the way. In fairness, their defensive line probably looks really good in practice against that offensive line. Tough but fair. Well done.
A chef's kiss comment there.
Well done.
Do we? We're way too online to not mention this. Have we found the guy who said that he would eat dog shit? Have we found that guy? I know he closed his X account, formerly Twitter, closed that account, and Scott Van Pelt brought it up on Monday night after the game, saying, "Hey man, you can't just do that." Like, we're all, and that's Scott Van Pelt, of course, very online, being like, "Yeah, you can't just do that. Like, we are going to find you."
Oh yeah.
And people have found him and have been messaging him on like other applications I saw circulating on the internet, and he's just not responding. So. I mean,
I've been seeing those memes. It's like the guy and the girl laying in bed, and she's like, "I bet he's thinking about other girls," and he's like, "I wonder if that guy's eating the dog shit yet." Like,
that is where we're at.
Yep, that's where we're all at, Mike.
I know we're 17 minutes in. We're still talking about this Florida State game. We got a ton of games to preview, but the one thing quickly I want to get to: Florida State's off this weekend. Their next handful of games, if they play like they just did, I'm not sure they will win any of them. So I just want to mention the following. Ready? Next Saturday, they play Memphis and Nooner. I would argue that's probably the most winnable game.
Is that in Tallahassee, I hope?
It's in Tallahassee.
Okay, well, there's that.
They host Cal.
Okay.
Keep an eye on that one. Cal plays Auburn. If Cal goes down to Auburn this weekend, it gives Auburn a competitive game. I'm not feeling great about Florida State. At SMU, home against Clemson.
Man.
It's Michael Scott Lake.
Yeah. What do we feel good about with FSU right now and like what they're doing? I think I saw today. I think Cam retweeted something today that said that Vegas has adjusted Florida State's win total down to 5.5 on the season.
I mean, that would.
But is that crazy? They look terrible, Mike. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. They don't stop the run. Like, I mean, what are we hanging our hat on here?
Joey, they're 0-2, and I just gave you their next 4 games, and I told you I'm not sure they'll win any of them if they play like they just did. That would be 0-6. That would be 0-6.
On the table.
They'll win.
Has to be.
They'll win one of these next 4, maybe 2 of these next 4, I think. But 5.5's not crazy, man. And the second half of the schedule is not kind to them. They have Charleston Southern, which is like a gimme. They have Florida in the finale, which, I mean, they'll lose to Florida, I think, if they play like this. I mean, I know Florida looked awful against Miami, but Florida State's not good.
I mean, at this rate, there's not a chance that they don't have an interim head coach at that point. But
yeah, well, no, I agree. At Duke, they have at Miami, home against North Carolina. They go to South Bend, which, I mean, Notre Dame's probably like a 17-point spread if they play tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude.
Another good point. Will Secor, Jaden Ott might run for almost 300 yards in Tallahassee.
Yeah, man.
My goodness.
So, yep, not good, Florida State. Not good. Safe to say they're not one of the 3 best teams in the ACC.
As far as I'm concerned, nope.
So, missed on that. I missed on that one. I thought that they were in that category still, but that was a miss.
I mean, and I think it's easy to make that assumption. You know, you look at the stars, right, like on paper and all that, and it makes sense. But it's, it's one of those things, like, it seems like this is like a roster that was built like in the college football video game, right? We're like, well, we got all these stars. It's great. We got the most talented roster or one of the most talented rosters. But like, if those pieces don't fit and don't mesh together, That's not really how the real world works. Like your
No.
team can suck if your team's not built in a strategic manner,
Yeah.
So that's rough. Good job, Boston College. 1-0. Had a good game plan, executed it to perfection. I mean, this was never really all that close. So I'm thoroughly impressed with the first effort from Bill O'Brien and that staff.
He's a good coach, man. Been beating that drum. He is a good coach.
That's for sure. Mike, that does it for week 1. Are we ready to move on to week 2?
Yep, on to week 2.
Let's do it. All right. Let's start week 2 by looking back at week 1 with a look at our locks from last week. Mike, I went 2-0. I had Georgia minus the 13.5 against Clemson. That was a hit. I had Boston College, Florida State under the 49.5. That was a hit. You had Georgia Clemson under 48.5. That hit. And you also had Virginia Tech minus 13. So that makes me 2-0 and you 1-1.
Which one did I lose?
Well, judges are still reviewing them, but I'm pretty sure you lost one of them.
Yeah.
We move on to this week. We have a whole bunch of games. We have a couple of them on Friday night, so let's do those first before we jump into Saturday. We will start at 7 p.m. on ESPN2 as the SMU Mustangs are at home taking on the BYU Cougars. SMU an 11.5-point home favorite. Total is 55.5. Mike, do you have a decent sense of who SMU is or is not at this point?
No better sense than I do of BYU and who they are or are not. A lot of questions about BYU on paper coming into the year. They beat Southern Illinois by a metric ton last Saturday, and that doesn't tell us anything.
41-13, I think.
Yeah, and that doesn't really tell us anything.
Yeah.
So SMU looked questionable against Nevada, and they beat the all-inclusive Houston Christian by 1,000,000 last weekend. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
All-inclusive.
I don't know. Yes, all-inclusive. Not like a resort. But anyway, maybe like a resort. Who knows? Not sure I want to go to that resort.
Careful.
Okay, I'll stop there. I'm taking BYU. If I don't know anything about two teams, and you're giving me a little less than 2 touchdowns on the road, I'm taking the road team. And I think BYU is a lot closer to Nevada than Houston Christian, which is why I'm taking BYU to cover the spread here. That's the analysis on this game between two teams that we don't know a whole lot about yet. That's the analysis. Give me BYU.
I am completely with you. I have, after what I saw against that Nevada team, I want no part of laying double digits with SMU right now. Like, if it were 6.5, like maybe we'll talk, but 11.5, that's a hell of a lot of points right now for an SMU team. It seems like they're trying to figure out who they are at the moment. The same thing, I don't know a ton about either of these teams. I will say, for what it's worth, Nevada, who, again, nearly knocked off SMU 2 weeks ago and was supposed to be one of the worst teams in the FBS this year. I mean, they beat Troy on Saturday, 28-26. Like, Nevada might not be nearly as bad as we thought they were going to be, and maybe that game doesn't look nearly as bad on SMU as we thought it would, but still, like, I'm not looking to lay this many points and just expect SMU to get a bunch of margin on basically anybody right now. So I'm with you. Give me BYU in the 11.5. Total's 55.5. I lean over, but I don't really have a good pick on that.
Nope. I'm staying away from the total.
Yeah, I'll just stay there. So, all right, BYU plus the 11.5 for both of us. But I think maybe the expectation is SMU at home probably wins. Like, feel decent about that, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think this is a BYU outright situation. I think SMU wins this game. I think they're the better team, but 11.5, a lot of points.
Stranger things have happened. Like, I'm not going to guarantee you that SMU is going to win this game, but if it's up to me to pick who wins, probably SMU. We'll go there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep. All right. Later in the evening, Mike, at 9 o'clock on FS1, the Duke Blue Devils on the road taking on the Northwestern Wildcats. Duke a 2.5-point underdog on the road. Total is a
whopping
stout 37.5. Mike, I don't know if you've seen this is being played at Lanny and Sharon Martin Stadium in Evanston, Illinois. And if you're not familiar,
right next to Denny's.
It's right next to a Denny's, and it's Northwestern's practice field, which they demolished the old stadium. Was that Ryan Field, I think, there? Something like that. They demolished that. They're working on rebuilding it. In the meantime, they just built some bleachers around their practice field, and that's what Northwestern, a Big Ten team, is doing for, I believe, this year and maybe next year. So
13,000 fans, something like that.
Yeah. It's one of these situations where, like, if a punter really kind of gets a hold of one but also shanks it, it could go in the lake. Now, there's also winds coming off the lake that kind of work against that, but, like, if you haven't seen, like, the pictures, you should definitely go look them up from, I believe it was Indiana that was there last weekend. Really pretty scenes. Also really weird to look at. It's like one of those like Alaskan high school football stadiums, like just really kind of bizarre. Mike, I don't trust Duke to keep this within 2.5. Give me Northwestern. And honestly, a total 37.5. Give me the under. Duke's offense, it took all night to get to like 20 points last week against Elon. I don't know. I don't see how much they're scoring. There's a chance, and there's some of these teams, some of these games this weekend that these teams last week, maybe they were trying not to show anything, trying to play it really vanilla, and maybe it gets better this weekend, but I'll come back to it in a minute, but I can't be just banking on Duke to be something different than I saw last weekend. So give me Northwestern and give me the under.
We entered the year with questions about Duke's offensive line. I mean, we entered the year with a lot of questions about Duke, just roster turnover, staff turnover, that whole thing. But we entered the year with a lot of questions about Duke's offensive line. They were not really pushing Elon around. It took a while. And that concerns me. That and the fact that, like, when Malik Murphy played competent defenses last year at Texas in, like, the handful of games that he started, he was prone to trying to play hero ball, and he turned the ball over some, put it in harm's way. And we didn't see that in the opener, but I think we could see that here. Weird weather game. Going to be a little chilly, maybe a little breezy. I was actually on a Northwestern podcast yesterday with a buddy of mine from Sports Illustrated. He's a Northwestern alum. He does a podcast for Northwestern on the Believe podcast network, so go check his podcast out if you want to listen to my random thoughts on this game that I previewed extensively. But one of the takeaways here for me is, like, Duke's offensive line going up against Northwestern's defensive front, which is like the strength of their entire team, is their defensive line. Not really the best matchup for Duke. And Malik Murphy, if we've seen anything from him in, like, his limited games that he started, when he's under pressure, he'll throw you a couple. I think that could happen here. I like Northwestern's, like, Mike Wright, his ability as a dual threat quarterback. I think that could give Duke's defense some issues. I like Northwestern here outright, and I also like the under. In fact, I like the under so much, we're going to go ahead and lock that up, Joey.
Oh, hang on.
I should have prepped you better for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we're locking that up.
We're going to get there. We'll get there.
Lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Please.
It's one of my 2 locks this week, Joey, and I got another one I'm really excited about.
Ooh. All right. Fair enough. All right, Northwestern and the under for the both of us. And Mike, was that under that you locked up? Sorry, I lost track there for a second.
Not locking up the over, I'll tell you that.
All right, yeah, definitely not. All right, Northwestern and the under for the both of us. Mike has the under locked up, and man, that's a really low number. Otherwise, I'd be tempted to lock it up myself. But
Feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, if anything here, I might come back and lock up Northwestern. We'll see. Inside of 3 points at home, I don't have a lot of reason to believe that Duke is going to jump up and win this game necessarily, but it might be closer than I want to bank on. So anyways, all right, Northwestern and the under for the both of us. Anything else, Mike, before we jump into Saturday?
Nope, we're good. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's start with the headliner of the weekend in the ACC. It is at 7:30 p.m. on ABC. It is the number 24 NC State Wolfpack taking on the number 14 Tennessee Volunteers. NC State an 8-point underdog. Total is 61.5. This is from Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. I kind of alluded to this a minute ago, Mike. I've been thinking, and I'm trying to make sure that I am the best version of myself, and that's as a person, as a professional, as a father, and as a podcaster. And one of the things I've realized on this growth journey of mine is when people tell me who they are, I need to listen and I need to believe them. And last weekend, NC State told me that they do not really have this thing all fully together on either side of the ball, honestly, as they played with their food for a full 3 quarters. And this week they go play what I think could be like one of the 10-ish best teams in the country. And it's a neutral site, but we're only getting 8 points against a Tennessee team that might absolutely damn the torpedoes and just go for it here. And from what I saw from NC State last weekend, I did not see a team telling me that they can keep up with Tennessee in this game in any way, shape, or form. So at that point, Mike, give me the Volunteers. Give me Tennessee. I'll lay the 8. I'll lay however many you want. I'm going to lock that up. Give me Tennessee.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Please.
Not rolling with NC State here.
Joining you. One of my favorite bets of the entire weekend, Tennessee -8. We're locking that up too, Joey.
Lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Please.
Double barrel. Absolutely.
Double barrel. Absolutely. Without a doubt. Not even thinking about it. Joey, this is why NC State yielded almost 6.5 yards per carry against Western Carolina defensively.
An FCS team, before they go and play, a top 15 team in the country.
Yep.
I did not get the sense that this was NC State holding stuff back last week. I got the sense this is a team, again, trying to gel and trying to figure it out. And I just don't think that they're ready for this Tennessee team, which I think has a little bit more of an established identity at this point.
I mean, first of all, I totally agree with that. Like, the talk is about Nico Imalieva. I think I got that pronunciation right this time.
Imalieva.
Imalieva.
Just start making some noises, and then eventually it'll come out.
Anyway, one guy's name who I can pronounce is Dylan Sampson. He had 12 for 124 and 3 touchdowns on the ground last week. And if you're giving up almost 6.5 yards per carry against Western Carolina, that makes me not feel good about your chances to stop Sampson. This is... We talked about how we were a little bit iffy on Grayson McCall and his showing in the opener, and I think NC State will score some, but this is the toughest offense they'll see all year by a mile. By a mile. I mean, Tennessee might lead the FBS in scoring potentially. I mean, they're gonna hang it on everybody, and so this is a really tough matchup. I think Tennessee is one of those like sleeper playoff teams. Everybody's talking about a bunch of other teams in the SEC. Tennessee might be the sleeper playoff team if Nico looks as good as he did in the opener. And this is an opportunity to show it against a better team, obviously. You're not playing Chattanooga here. You're playing NC State. And, I really like NC State here by like 14-17. I think they could really lay it on them.
I was going to say, this might be Tennessee alt-line territory if that's kind of your flavor of betting, because I don't think 8 is nearly enough points in this situation for NC State. I think you need to about double that for me to start considering it. It's on both sides of the ball. Like, NC State seems like there's some growing pains as they kind of try to replace a bunch of pieces on defense right now, and then offense just not nearly in sync enough to think that they're going to keep anything near keeping up with Tennessee in this game. So
yep.
Tennessee locked up for the both of us. I'm going to say over. I'll pick the over here. I'm not locking that up for sure. 61.5. Just feels like Tennessee is going to be playing a lot of games to get more than 62 points in them. So I think they're going to score a lot. I think NC State's going to have some opportunity to score some themselves. So I'll take over 61.5 in this game as well.
I think this is like 41-24 or something like
Yeah.
that. And I think that gets you home on a couple fronts. So
Yeah, that's a good
that's
point.
what I'm feeling.
Good point.
And that might be a lot of points for NC State potentially, and that might be too many for Tennessee. But I mean, you can adjust that a little bit either direction and still get home on the over. So I like the over as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know. We'll find out a little bit more about Tennessee's defense in this game, obviously. So we'll find out just how good that unit is. If that's even like a mediocre unit this year, and Tennessee just kind of runs by people on offense, this is going to be a pretty good Volunteers team, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No shame in this for NC State if this doesn't go very well. So
No.
Totally okay. Totally
Especially
okay.
with NC State's schedule, like the rest of the way. Like there are a lot of winnable games. This is one I think if you got to pick one to lose on the schedule, lose this one. It's not a conference game, and everything you need is still in front of you. So
Yep. Yeah. No harm, no foul there. All right. Tennessee locked up for the both of us and the over for the both of us. Let's move on at noon on the ACC network. The ranked number 23 Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets on the road in we're just going with the Carrier Dome. It's the Carrier Dome. They're taking on the Syracuse Orange. Total is 61.5, Mike, and most importantly, Syracuse a 2.5 point home dog, which makes them officially our very first home field apparel home dog of the week. And we will get a sound effect to go after that when I say that. But make sure you use promo code GOACC for 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com. They have great apparel for all of the ACC's teams. With an asterisk, there's like one that they don't. But anyways, chances are if you're listening to this, you're an ACC fan, they got apparel for your teams. Super soft shirts, vintage apparel, lots of really cool things. They got bomber jackets and coach jackets and hats and like all sorts of crazy stuff there. Homefieldapparel.com, really love their stuff. Highly recommended. Promo code GOACC for 15% off your first order.
home dog of the week.
Syracuse, a 2.5 point home dog. They are the home dog of the week. Look, Georgia Tech ranked. First time they have been ranked since 2015.
Oh my God, it's been that long?
Yeah, that's like the third or fourth longest streak among Power 5 teams, Power 4 teams, whatever. It's been a long time. And it's been even a little bit longer than that since they've won as a ranked team. I don't have a ton of analysis. I'm still very much trying to figure out what either of these teams are.
Yeah.
I will say, at this point, I do not trust Georgia Tech to go on the road as a favorite and win against a team that is relatively evenly matched. I think SP Plus maybe favors Georgia Tech here by like less than a point. So maybe it's a little bit of emotional hedging. Maybe it's just again not trusting this team and its development. Syracuse had some good moments last weekend against Ohio. Definitely seemed like a team that I think they're still figuring some things out, but they've got some things going for them. And I think they will. I'm going to say that Syracuse gets it done in the Carrier Dome because I just can't. I can't buy in, Mike. I can't give my heart away in mid-September. It's not time for that yet. So give me the Orange outright and over 61.5. That's honestly the thing I feel better about in this game. I think there's going to be a lot of scoring. I think both the offenses better than both the defenses.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I lean that way, right? I probably lean on the over. I don't feel particularly strongly about that one way or the other. But the one thing I will say is, look, I mean, I think Vegas is trying to tell us something here, number one, right? When you look at the way Georgia Tech has run the ball over the first 2 weeks, and you look at how Syracuse struggled to defend the run against Ohio, it looks like a pretty good matchup for Georgia Tech on paper in terms of like their ability to run the ball against the Syracuse defense. It's one data point, right? It's one data point for Syracuse, but like what we saw so far against like a middling MAC team is not promising. Now, with that said, I feel like this should be Georgia Tech around 4 or 5, like maybe just inside a touchdown. And the fact that it's not is like, and we've seen this story before. I mean, I think Syracuse can do some things in the passing game that could potentially give Georgia Tech some issues. I mean, I think it's fair to say that Georgia Tech, They played Florida State and Georgia State. It's fair to say that they haven't faced exactly a potent passing attack yet. I'm not saying Syracuse is one of those teams either, but they looked pretty competent last week with McCord. They looked pretty good. You put Kyle McCord in a dome, and all of a sudden he looks like he can throw the football a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see. The point you made at the outset about like trying to figure out what these two teams are, I think is a pretty good point, especially because that Georgia Tech win in the opener was obviously really impressive to go and win that game. But also, like, Florida State's looked so bad that now we're left wondering, okay, how much of that was Georgia Tech? How much of it was Florida State? Much like we're talking about with Boston College. How much of that was BC? How much of it was Florida State? Not to take anything away, but zero-sum
What
game
one
sort.
team is versus what one team isn't. Like it's a valid question this early in the season to ask those questions. I think.
Right. Yeah, we don't have enough. And we got more information on Georgia Tech and Florida State than almost any other team in college football, so Anyway, I'm with you. At a nooner in the dome. I don't love this spot for Georgia Tech at all. I'm going with Syracuse outright. I think they win the game. I don't really know why. I think we'll find out together. I'm doing this because of Vegas. I think Georgia Tech's got a favorable matchup with the running game, so I think that's the recipe for the Jackets if Syracuse doesn't improve in that area heading into the week. I think that's the area to watch. I think that's a really good setup for Georgia Tech to win this game. But I think the Vegas line is trying to tell us something, and because of that, I'm going with Syracuse.
Yeah, completely. One of the things I think that's going to be interesting to watch in this game is Georgia Tech's defensive game plan. So the plan they came out in Ireland with, and throw the first drive out basically because Florida State runs the ball down the field. No problem, like hot knife through butter, all that. After that, again, Georgia Tech was just 7-8 in the box the entire game, like no respect for Florida State's passing game, just loading up to stop the run, daring them to throw it. Week 2, Georgia State, it seemed like it was as vanilla a game plan as Tyler Santucci could come up with. Like, we're not trying to show anything. So, like, this is kind of the first time out of, and it'll be the third game, but it's the first time I feel like there might need to be somewhat of a diversified game plan here of how do we get pressure to Kyle McCord? How do we stop the run? How do we make sure everyone's covered? Like, it's kind of a unique spot, I think, relative to the first two games. So that's something that I'm going to be watching for and kind of curious about. But I'll take Syracuse outright. Again, a little bit of emotional hedging, a little bit of two teams that we're still not super sure what they are, and I'm getting points with a home team. So I'll just take those and feel fine about it and hope that I'm wrong, honestly, is where we're at. So
That's fair enough.
Yep. Anything else, Mike, before we move on?
No, I think we're good.
Let's do it. All right, let's keep moving. Before we do, as a reminder, this preview brought to you by Section103.com, the internet's premier place for all things wonderful Georgia Tech apparel. They got T-shirts, they got sweatshirts, they got hoodies, they got something for men, women, children, babies, something for the whole family. Every Georgia Tech fan in your life, they need something from Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. I love mine. I'm wearing a performance shirt right now. It's still super hot here in Houston, so it helps keep me cool, helps me looking good, helps make sure that people know that I'm a Tech fan and I support Tech. Love that. They got all sorts of great NIL shirts. Haynes King, Eric Singleton, Zach Pyron, a bunch of those. They've got a couple new shirts that came out too, by the way. There's a Ramblin' Wreck shirt and another The Institute shirt. I've got a couple of those coming my way. You might see those on an upcoming podcast sometime soon. And Mike, by the way, if you're not following their social medias, you're missing out. Because Georgia Tech yesterday ranked number 23 in celebration. The entire site 23% off.
Yep.
Go follow them on the social media. Make sure you know when you're getting good deals in Section 103. 10% off your first order is a good deal. 23% off your whole order is an even better deal. So go follow them again, Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. We love ours. You will love yours. Shout out to Steven and the gang. Appreciate their support as always.
If I am following Section 103 as a Virginia Tech fan, there's no reason why you shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's all I'll say. No, he's
That's
a
right.
loyal supporter of this podcast, but just got to get that out there.
That's right. Do it. 7 p.m. ESPN2. the Virginia Cavaliers on the road in Winston-Salem, taking on the Wake Forest Steamin' Deeks. Virginia, a 2-point road underdog here. Wake, a 2-point home favorite. Total's 56.5. Mike, are we betting on Virginia and Wake Forest?
I'm not betting anything here. But what I will say
Absolutely
is
not.
Absolutely not. Not with a 10-foot pole. Now, the one thing I will say is this reminds me a lot of what we were just talking about with SMU and BYU a few minutes ago. We have no idea what these teams are. Virginia wins in blowout fashion the opener. Wake Forest does the same. We do know that Virginia has a very high upside quarterback in Anthony Calandria that you and we're conducting that train, the Calandria train. Because we like him a lot. Can we get the train sound, Scott? Gotta get a train sound, maybe. He'll find one. I know he will. He'll find one.
Oh, yeah.
Give me the Who's here. Because of Calandria and the upside at quarterback, and Wake Forest is still trying to figure out what they are. I think it's going to probably be Hank Bachmeier here. I know they shuffle quarterbacks a little bit in the opener. It's probably going to be Bachmeier. Again, because he's a transfer, and they're paying him obviously some sum of money to play there in Winston-Salem. So just something to monitor. And yes, I'm on Virginia money line, like outright here. I think they win the game. So no,
give me Virginia outright. Yeah.
No opinion on the total, by the way.
Yeah, 56.5. Yeah, you can keep it. That's fine either way. Yeah, I like Virginia, a team that's kind of on the rise, and I'm trying to get on the front end of the wave here. I think that they are going to take a bit of a jump here with Anthony Calandria that we didn't quite fully see last year as they flip-flopped and did the whole quarterback dance that they did. So, yeah, give me the Who's. I think they can go in here and get a win and kind of keep the season rolling here early. Wake Forest continuing to do the quarterback kind of flip-flop thing, not totally sure, and that's definitely a thing that gives me some pause here, wanting to take them in a close game like this. So, yeah, let's stick with Virginia.
Why not? Right?
Why not? Oh, this is
No
a good
good
question
reason.
from Will Score. Does Virginia play BC this year? Because Castellanos Calandria would be a lot of fun. I agree, Will. That would be a hell of a lot of fun.
Let me tell you. I can tell you that answer in one moment.
There you go.
They do. They play Boston College in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Let's get weird.
We will
That'll be a
see
fun
you
game.
on October 5th, baby. I guess one
Let's
month from now.
go.
There's a bye week in there, I guess, for UVA. So we'll see you in a month.
There you go. Virginia outright for the both of us. Good to move on, Mike.
If you're holding a Virginia over ticket, this would be a big one to win.
Sure would.
Yeah.
Kind of a swing game there, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a huge one.
Yep. All right, noon on ESPN2, the Pitt Panthers, a 1.5-point underdog on the road, taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. Total of 63.5. Mike, why is Pitt an underdog in this game?
Great question. This is another situation where I feel like Vegas
Hold
is
on.
trying to tell us a little something.
I'm getting the button ready. Hang on. The button's ready. Are you locking this up? Are you?
No, God, Jesus, God.
Oh,
No,
all right,
God,
all right,
God,
never mind.
yeah, okay. I'm glad you
I
got the
misread
button
the
ready for
room.
this.
I'm sorry.
Glad you got the button ready for this one. No, I don't get this line at all, which makes me think that Cincinnati is probably the right side of the line here. But man, Pittsburgh's offense looked pretty good. Against Kent State. Now, with that said, took Pitt's defense about a half to figure it out, right? And not saying Cincinnati is a wagon, but Cincinnati can score some points on you. So just something to monitor. I like the over a little bit more than I like picking the spread here. I think this game could go over. This game could go over, Joey.
63
I mean,
and a half.
It could. I mean, if we see that version of Pitt, I'm not saying Pitt's going to hang 55 on opponents every week, but if we see like that version of the Pitt offense again, right? If they're scoring like in the mid to high 30s and
Like
Cincinnati
38, something like that.
yeah, like 35, 38 range, and Cincinnati's like right there with them, we're cruising on the over.
Yeah.
Cruising. So I think I like the over here. I like Pitt outright, and I feel like this is a bet I'll probably regret, or a pick. I'm not betting this, so I guess it's a pick I'll probably regret. We'll kind of be left scratching our heads about why we didn't pick Cincinnati, but man, I don't know. This is like two coaches where I feel like there's a little bit of hot seat stuff going on, and I feel like this is a really pivotal game. And Cincinnati's got it at home, so I feel like if they lose, that's a lot of. I know Satterfield just got there, but like last year was so bad, and I feel like if you lose to Pitt, which is like kind of like a rival, I think it's. I don't know, man. I think it's a tough little matchup, tough little non-con game here in week 2. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Give me Pitt close.
I also like Pitt money line. And you know, something that we talked about at the time was Cincinnati's head coach Scott Satterfield was hired from Louisville, to which Louisville fans immediately were looking around like, wait, did that really, like, am I dreaming? Did that just happen? Like, we don't have to pay him to go away? Like, they're ready to get rid of him.
What a gift.
Cincinnati hired him, and we couldn't figure out why. And then sure enough, he shows up, and in year 1, like, they're like, what, 3-9? Like, they were terrible.
Horrible.
Looked awful. And, you know, I think they're probably a little bit better this year, but I'm more buying into what we saw last week from Pitt and thinking there might be some more rebound there than thinking that Scott Satterfield is really building something in year 2 at Cincinnati. Like, I feel like he is just kind of going to hang out there for a couple of years. And yeah, I'm with you. This feels like, you know, if you're a Split Zone Duo listener, I'm going to just totally hijack the term an anxiety bowl.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a full anxiety bowl. Like, I don't think whoever loses here is like on firing watch, but it's going to turn up the burners on one of them, you know, whoever loses here. So I feel better about Pittsburgh given what we saw last week. Give me the Panthers outright. I think they win this game in Nippert.
Yeah. Eli Holstein looked pretty good.
Yeah.
I know we touched on that in the recap, but like he looked pretty good. And if that's a repeatable thing and he turns into a player for them, I think that's really going to change the trajectory. And obviously they've changed the offensive coaching staff. And good point by Will Secor here. Very good point by Will Secor. This, you know, you really hope not, but there's a non-zero chance this is a look-ahead spot with the backyard brawl next week. So don't screw it up, Pitt. That's for sure. With how West Virginia looked on offense, I don't think Pitt needs to be worried about looking ahead. That's the only thing I'll say. Yeah, but they will. I mean, there's potential there. It's a very good point. Hopefully, their defense is like a fraction of what Penn State's is. So there's that. It's very true. All right, Pitt outright for both of us, and over for Mike. But definitely, no locks. Definitely won't regret that. By the way, I don't think Cincinnati has the juice to fire Satterfield after 2 years. I'll just put that out there. I don't think they got the juice. Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, definitely not. So people in the know a lot more than you and I seem to think that that's in the cards, and I just don't. I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair. All right, 3:30 p.m. also on ESPN2. Just keep it tuned there. The Cal Golden Bears on the road on the Plains taking on the Auburn Tigers. Cal's a 13-point underdog in this game. Total's 53.5. I want to believe in Cal, and I also want to not believe in Auburn. Yeah, but like, yeah. I don't know, man. I don't see Cal going all the way across the country into Jordan-Hare. I don't know that they got the juice to keep up with Auburn and what they're going to do on offense under Hugh Freeze and, you know, a year into recruiting and all that. I just give me Auburn. I'll lay the 13, and I feel just fine about that. No problem. You know, this could be a lot like this is very like old school podcast. You and I, like year 1 or 2. Like Lamar Jackson and Louisville going up against Kentucky, and you were like emphatic that Kentucky was going to beat that ass, and that's exactly what they did because they just like won the game in the trenches. We could see that. We could certainly see that here. But I like Cal. Really? I like Cal. Taking the points. I'm on Cal. Yeah, I'm taking the points. Give me those points. I'm a Cal believer. Wins outright, says Mike McDaniel. No. Jesus, God. I mean, let's calm down. We'll calm down.
Sorry. I got excited there for a second. Sorry.
I mean, that would be. I mean, I've made crazier predictions, haven't I? On this podcast, I think I've made some.
Hold on. We have sound for
picks.
this. Hang on. Hold on. Where is it? We got too many sounds here. Where is it?
I'm locking up UConn. Oh God, I forgot about that one. God, that's a couple years old now, I think. Right?
It might be. Yeah.
Jeez. Never
Cal,
do that again.
huh?
Cal. Fernando Mendoza looked pretty good in the opener. Jaden Ott got hurt, and they still managed just fine. Ott's probable this weekend, so I think it's important to note that. Cal establishes a little bit of the running game, shortens the game a little bit. I like the under as well, 53.5. Peyton Thorne is Auburn's quarterback. If they play like anybody semi-competent, I don't believe in them to score like 1 million points. I know Hugh Freeze is calling the plays and stuff, but I mean, let's be honest with ourselves here.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those situations too of like, I mean, Cal didn't look super impressive against UC Davis. Auburn played Alabama A&M.
Yeah.
What did we learn from either of these teams in week one? Nothing. Like, there's just, we're just guessing at this point.
And UC Davis is probably better than Alabama A&M by like a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
By like a lot. So
yeah.
Shoulder shrug. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just it's not enough for me. And maybe again, Cal, newcomer to the conference, maybe I'm underestimating him entirely on the table, but you got to show me, Cal. Got to show me. I'll lay the 13 with Auburn. No problem. 53.5. No opinion there. Maybe over. It's me. Well, I don't know. Yeah, leave it alone for me.
Probably a leave alone, but I'm going to go under.
There you go. All right.
So I'll get on the board with the total. It's been a few games.
Completely disagree on this game. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, this first one tonight.
Yeah, finally. Something that we disagree on. There you go. All right. Auburn for me, Cal on the under for Mike. Let's keep it moving here. At 4:30 p.m. on our very favorite TV network, the CW. Mike, your Virginia Tech Hokies are a 20.5-point favorite at home.
What could go
against
wrong?
Our favorite South Korean baseball team, the CW underdog, Marshall Thundering Herd. Totals 51.5. And before we like really, I feel like the most important analysis we can give of this matchup comes from Lee Nobody, who points out in 2023, underdogs on the CW went 11-3 against the spread and 9-5 straight up. They played 14 times on the CW and underdogs won 9 of them. Mike, you feeling good about the Hokies?
I am. Yeah, I am.
Are you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am. I'm feeling real good about the Hokies here. I think I'm one of the few people in the Virginia Tech fan base because a lot of people are like calling for Brent Pricehead because people are stupid. I think it's a little early, but people are having some trouble with the whole coping thing. Because there are people out there. Couldn't be me because I'm not that silly, Joey. People out there were thinking Virginia Tech was going to make the college football playoff, and I made that very clear that I was not in that camp. That was not. I made it very clear to you and to David Cunningham, who also was in the same camp as I was, that they are not. They don't have the juice. Those people were most disappointed and most angry after that Vanderbilt loss. Marshall, we don't know. I will say this. We don't know a ton about Marshall, right? They're still trying to figure out what their quarterback situation is. They were shuffling quarterbacks, including, by the way, Cole Pennington, son of Chad. He got in the game in the opener for Marshall.
Is there another son of Chad? How many sons does he have? Anyways.
You can find it in the gospel somewhere. But, yes, he's a lot of quarterbacks being thrown around there. Yeah, I mean, Charles Huff just said in his press availability this week he's no closer to figuring out who the starter is. So he's just shuffling guys. Totally fine. Whatever. We'll just shuffle them around. Totally fine. This is a game where I think Virginia Tech comes out, plays a little angry. throws the ball down the field against a Marshall secondary that's like very suspect. I think Kyra Drones has a big day. I think the defense plays a lot better. I think Marshall, on paper, which we know games aren't played on paper, as we found out last week, but I think on paper, Marshall is like totally overwhelmed up front. I think Virginia Tech wins this game like 42-17 or something like that. I think it's a rout. Like I think a lot of people are expecting a slow start because and I think it's fair because last weekend did not go very well. Everybody's like expecting the worst, hoping for the best. I think Virginia Tech actually starts fast here and just blows Marshall out of the stadium. That's kind of what I'm thinking, but maybe not. Also, maybe not. We'll see.
End the game early. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have no opinion on the total because I said 42-17. That would go way over.
Yeah.
And I see a total of like 51.5. Either they don't think Virginia Tech's going to score that many, or they're very, very low on Marshall, which is it's looking like they're very low on Marshall is what that total and the spread are indicating. So
totally fair. Mike, remember that thing that I said about when people tell you who they are, you need to listen and you need to believe them?
Yeah.
I saw a Virginia Tech team last week that was a little disorganized, a little bit lacking of identity.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Not super well coached. Kind of figuring things out on the fly.
Yeah.
Mike, I'm not laying 20.5 points.
Okay, that's fine.
With a team that was acting like that 6 days ago. These things don't get fixed in 4 practices. Okay,
I'll see you on the recap. We'll see you on the recap. See how it turns out. We'll see how it turns out. Yeah,
I've been wrong once or twice before.
Me too. Me too.
This has happened.
Me too.
I'm not laying 3 touchdowns with a team that got 2 men had the same number on their jersey penalty last
really
week.
Bad.
In a crucial spot, right?
You're not gonna hear any qualms from me. The one thing I'll say is this opened at 14.5 and quickly got bet up to another touchdown. So
I'll take them all.
The whole Vegas trying to tell us something thing, which we've been really inconsistent on with the Cincinnati Pitt game and also Syracuse Georgia Tech. Vegas is trying to tell us something again, and because it's my team they're trying to tell us something about, I'm going with the Hokies.
I pick my spots. It's like, does it fit my narrative? No, I'm ignoring it. It's fine. I
hate money, so we're just gonna.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not picking Marshall to win the game. Okay, I think the Hokies win.
Okay,
but I think it's like a 10 to 14 point win, not like a 3 touchdown kind of win. So. You give me that many points with a team that looked like they looked last week. Give me the underdog. Not to mention, CW underdogs are 1-0 so far this season, Mike, as Oregon State was a 29.5 point favorite last week and only won by 23. So
could it be that these against the spread totals, and I think we're going to have to go a game by game. I think that's a little bit of homework for Lee Nobody. A game by game spreadsheet so we can determine just how mid some of these teams are and what we would bet against the spread, right? Like, is it possible that we're just getting some ass teams on the CW and we already know I think we already know the answer to that question.
We know the answer.
Are they in the range of Cheeks?
Cheeks W. That's right.
Cheeks W. I always wondered what that stood for.
Yeah. Our cover's blown here. On the Cheeks W. This is what we get for podcasting at like 12:30 on the East Coast. So,
yeah.
All right. Anyways,
with a couple in us.
Yeah, a couple. All right, Marshall and the points for me. You're laying them with Virginia Tech. I think we both think the Hokies win, and neither of us on the total here.
No thanks.
51.5. That's a lot of points.
Big no thanks on the spread as well. I can sound confident all I want. I'm not betting that thing.
Yep. No way. I'll pass. All right, a couple more here, Mike. 3:30 p.m. on the ACC Network Extra. That's streaming, so do not check your local listings. Louisville, a 30-point favorite at home, taking on the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. Total is 58.5. I'm just gonna lay 'em with Louisville here. You saw how much they ran up the score last week on Austin Peay. they had they had one game last week. They've got another kind of softball layup game this week. You've got a bye week next week. I think this is Jeff Brom just trying to get the team going through the motions kind of thing before they have to actually play a real opponent in 2 weeks when they play Georgia Tech. So I just lay them, and I think Louisville's going to try to run up the score the same way they did last week.
Forecast there in Louisville for Saturday. Sunny, 79 degrees. Good afternoon to get some exercise.
Track meet.
Yeah. Louisville by 1 million.
Yeah. I would be interested in over 58.5 if I didn't think Louisville might have to score most of that themselves.
I was going to say, I would too if I'm betting Louisville to win like 65-6. But
yeah,
I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't trust Jacksonville State enough. And I think Louisville, given the fact that they have a bye week next week, I think they might just like rest the starters, get them a breather, get ready for Georgia Tech in 2 weeks.
Yeah. You're banking on Louisville keeping the throttle down,
yeah,
and they might take it off at any point. You don't really know. So, all right, Louisville for the both of us. Let's move on. Also at 3:30 p.m. on the ACC network, the North Carolina Tar Heels, a 22.5-point home favorite, taking on the Charlotte 49ers. Totals 46.5. Mike, you remember that thing I told you about when a team tells you who they are, believe them?
Yeah.
Why are we laying 22.5 with North Carolina right now?
Did you watch Charlotte against James Madison? That's why we're laying 22.5. Give me Carolina.
Okay, fine. You can have them. You can have them.
Dude.
I am not laying 3 touchdowns with North Carolina right now. Why would you do that?
Joey.
Total's 46.5.
Joey. James Madison. James Madison just beat Charlotte by 3 touchdowns, and James Madison might make a bowl game. This Charlotte team is Joey. Charlotte is so bad. They're so bad, Joey.
So why isn't it like 31?
Because Carolina's got a backup quarterback. That's why. You and I know the answer to that.
So we're not laying 22.5.
Joey.
That's right. Look, I get it. I understand. And that looks attractive, right? Is like, well, Charlotte's like Biff Pogge's been out there talking about how they're missing 13 starters or whatever because they ran too hard of a fall camp. Like, I get it. It's not about Charlotte being like a passable team right now. It's about UNC looked like garbage.
Joey
got lucky to win in Minnesota last week.
I have a follow up for you. Well, I have
22.5.
I have 2 follow-ups. Number 1.
Go ahead.
Whose defense would you rather have, Charlotte's or Minnesota's?
Minnesota's, I think.
Okay, good. Good answer. Also, how many All-Americans are on the field in this game on Saturday?
None?
One. Omari and Hampton. Joey. Omari and Hampton might score 3 times himself.
Yeah, is he going to keep Charlotte out of the end zone?
Joey, they scored 7 against James Madison.
Look,
like not last year's James Madison. You know, like
I know. I'm just, if this is 28-7, I'm right.
You are right.
Like this doesn't have to be that competitive of a game.
You are right.
You don't have to get 22.5. You know.
By the way, you're clearing the under by like a touchdown and a half if it's 28-7.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, that might be the real play here is the under because it might be just entirely North Carolina scoring, which is a scary thing to say so far in 2024.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You know what? Yeah, let's do that. Charlotte and the under.
Carolina and the under. And I'm with you. I feel a lot better about the under to the point where I actually might bet that too, now that we've talked about it. Not enough to lock it up maybe on this podcast, but it might be in my Twitter picks. So, or I'm sorry, X. I mean, sorry, Elon. Yeah, X. Might be my X picks this week.
Keep an eye on the Twitter. I'm not calling it X. I'm not doing that. But keep an eye on Mike's Twitter.
I'm not. Yeah. Okay. Good. Keep it with Twitter.
Mike does a really nice job, actually, of what's the very transparent picks and results and tracking the record and So you can kind of track that through the season, decide where you want to follow and where you don't.
Yeah.
He's,
I-
very good about that.
For what's worth, I hit on like 54% of them last year. So a few money lines in there, a few money line losses too. So I mean, I broke about even, this is entertainment. Don't bet a mortgage on this stuff. I bet about $10 a game and just let it rip.
Yeah. See what happens. There you go. All right. Charlotte for me, North Carolina for Mike. Both of us on the under, and the side that we're both much more interested in than the spread here. So, all right. Last one before we get to a couple of FCS games here, Mike. 8 p.m. on the ACC network, the number 14 Clemson Tigers at home. They are a 16.5-point favorite taking on the App State Mountaineers. Total's 53.5. Mike, remember that thing I told you about when somebody tells you who they are, you got to believe them?
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I am not laying 16.5 with Clemson right now.
Yeah.
They look like they belong on the Cheeks W.
Cheeks W.
Give me App State. Give me the 16.5. Like, I think this is an uncomfortable competitive game, not because App State is like really truly a top 25 contender, but just why would I lay almost, like upwards of 2 touchdowns with Clemson right now?
The Chase Bryce Bowl is a night game.
Is he still there? Is he in Boone?
No, Jesus, no.
Oh,
God, no.
okay.
Come
All
on.
right.
Okay. So, look, Clemson in the trenches could give App State a ton of trouble, right? They could give them a ton of trouble. Now, the one thing I will say, as I finally switch the banner, the one thing I will say is that Joey Aguilar, the quarterback for App State, looked very good in the opener. App State had a walkover win in the first game of the year. He also threw for like 3,700 yards last year. Like, he's no slouch G5 quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't about Joey Aguilar, Joey. This is about the fact that Clemson's quarterback is Cade Klubnik. They cannot gain separation on anybody as long as Cade Klubnik is under center. We've seen it. I've seen enough. Have you seen enough of Cade Klubnik? I think we're done here, right?
More than enough.
We're done here. Like, this is... I'd rather have Chase Bryce under center if I'm Clemson than Cade Klubnik. Like, this is...
I think it was Saturday night.
Bad.
I was seeing the tweet that was like, Cade Klubnik was the number 2 quarterback in whatever, like the 2021 class. Connor Wegman was the number 3 quarterback in the 2021 class. And it was like, can you find me a worse set of 5-star quarterbacks? Like,
I know.
These guys have not developed at all. Cade Klubnik, I don't need you to be like Russell Wilson. Can you just like get the offense moving a little bit sometimes? Like, I don't know. The guy, deer in the headlights, just ridiculous, right? Like, this is not, it's not working at all.
He's not, and I'll lay this claim now and stake this claim. I have mentioned this a little bit to you off the air. I'd rather have DJ playing quarterback if I'm Clemson. I'd rather have DJ. Like, Klubnik,
Okay.
Klubnik's bad, dude. And I know DJ's bad. I'd rather have DJ. This is
pretty rough, man.
This is awful. Like, Klubnik's an awful watch. He's an awful watch. DJ, I feel like I'm getting upside at some point. Like, I'm not sure I've seen Klubnik play a good game yet.
I don't know if I've seen DJ play. Well, I didn't watch a lot of the Oregon State games, to be fair.
There was some better stuff at Oregon State than we saw at Clemson, and certainly some better stuff at Oregon State than we've seen the first 2 games at Florida State. But my God, dude, I don't know if I've seen a good game out of Klubnik yet.
The last good DJU game I have seen at an ACC program, I think might have been that Notre Dame game in 2020. Like, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
that one sticks out in my mind, and I remember watching that and just thinking at the time, like, man, this guy, they've got something here, and this guy looks like he could be Cam Newton reincarnate, like the whole thing, and just
We've
has
done
been
this 3 in a
downhill
row.
from there. And
Like, we've done this 3 in a row at quarterback. Like,
and some of these throws I was watching on Monday night are just like seared into my brain of like, what are you? That guy's wide open and you just missed him. And he did the same thing in Dublin, honestly. Like he just, on a few occasions had wide open dudes. He just can't hit them. Underthrowing deep balls and just the whole thing is ridiculous to watch for both of them, honestly.
And this might be more damning against like Clemson as a program and like their lack of development at wide receiver in recent years. But like when I see Bo Collins transfer to Notre Dame, and Clemson really couldn't get anything out of Bo Collins relative to like what they recruited, and then Bo Collins just like goes and has a huge game against Texas A&M, it leaves me like scratching my head. I'm just like, like that's interesting. So like if Klubnik's not throwing guys open and like receivers are going on to different schools and like it's a 1-game sample size, so like we'll keep an eye on it, right? But like playing better at other schools, maybe it's just a Clemson thing, right? Like maybe it's just, and DJ's been bad at Florida State, right? But like maybe it's just a Clemson thing where like these guys move on and they're just better off for it, which would be really damning against Dabo, which I think we're just getting more and more data points on at this point. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. All that to say, give me App State here.
Yeah, agreed. App State in the points. I think Clemson wins, but I'm not laying 16.5 with them right now against a plucky, competitive App State team. I can't do it. We're an hour and 16 minutes into this, Mike, and I have another thought about the whole Dabo thing that I'll save for another time because it's getting late. But we'll come back to that sometime. Anyways, we got 3 more games here, Mike. I'm just going to roll through these real quick and just tell me if you have any thoughts. 3:30 p.m. ACC Network Extra. Boston College at home against Duquesne. That's Duquesne. Yeah, I have to do that to make sure that people know that I know how to pronounce it, but I also got to do the dad joke thing of pronouncing it the way that it's written in super white people English.
Yeah.
So
it would have been funnier if Boston College hired Bob Chesney. Then you could have had Bob Chesney against Duquesne. That would have been a lot
Chesney
funnier.
versus Duquesne. Let's go.
That's right.
No
thoughts. No thoughts. Nice scrimmage for BC.
Yeah, it should be fine. Walk through. 6 p.m. ACC Network Extra. The number 19 Miami Hurricanes taking on the Florida A&M Rattlers. I got nothing here. Again, walk through. Did I say 19? Jeez. Yeah, Miami's number 12 now. Yikes.
Yeah. They made quite the jump after beating a very mid team. They made quite the jump.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. 7 o'clock, ACC Network Extra. The Stanford Cardinal taking on the Cal Poly.
The Fighting Polys.
Cal Poly Mustangs.
The Fighting Polys.
Yeah,
I only have one comment. Really, it's just a college game day sign. Cal Poly is just a feeder school for Stanford.
There's jokes I want to make, but I'm going to make them off air. Don't worry.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good to me.
That one, don't totally write off this game. I was hoping a little bit, and so first off, Cal Poly lost at San Diego last week, and not San Diego State, San Diego. So maybe don't lose that game if you're Stanford.
I was gonna say it would be probably a pretty bad look for the rebuild thing, but
yeah, not ideal. But there was a little piece of me that was hoping this would be like a 10 p.m. game so that we could kind of, do the live recap, live commentary thing.
I mentioned this week. I recorded my Virginia Tech podcast right before this, and I mentioned when we were going through our ACC picks that this is a game I was really hoping would be on at like 10 or 11 o'clock that you could fire on after a day of gambling. Like a 40-point spread, and you're trying to win everything back. Like this is the game to fire on. So why are we playing it at 7 p.m. Eastern?
Man, if you're trying to get back from your day,
you've had a rough one
on Stanford and Cal Poly on a 38.5-point spread or whatever.
You haven't been following my picks on Twitter, is what I'll say. I've had some rough Saturdays, but I haven't gotten to that point yet. So
don't get down that bad. Don't get down that bad, please. Don't.
Brutal.
You
brutal.
You deserve better. Anyways, all right. Mike, anything else on these games? I feel like there's one that we probably missed here, huh?
Oh, God. Who's Bowling Green got?
Oh, hang on.
Play the
You
music.
got too many sounds on the board.
Oh, they actually play a good opponent this week, don't they? They do. Oh, my God. They got to go to Penn State. That's unfortunate.
Goodness. Where are we at line-wise?
We're noon on Big Ten Network and the line, Joey. Penn
that was
State by
God, I won't be able to see
35.
it.
Penn State by 35, Joey, with a 48.5 total.
Goodness. What is the implied score on this? Is this is like 42-6, 42-7? I think that's the implied score here.
40, yeah.
Mike, you know what we got to do here.
Oh,
Do it, Mike. Do it. Do it.
I can't.
Give me the Falcons.
I can't.
There's
All right,
another sound
fine.
in here that I will not be using.
Fine. Nah, yeah. Give me the Falcons as well. Give me Bowling Green. Their passing game actually, the Penn State passing game looked pretty encouraging last weekend, but Bowling Green actually I think is competent. So 5 touchdowns is a lot, and
Yeah.
Penn State's a playoff team. I get why it's 35, but there's some backdoor cover potential here.
Yeah. Man, Penn State. So they play Bowling Green on Saturday. And then my thought is, well, who do they got next week? Penn State's got nobody next week. And then the week after that, they got Kent State. And the week after that, they got Illinois. So, like, Penn State has no reason to be looking ahead to anything right now. Is basically
Yeah.
what I'm trying to tell you. So,
Yeah.
let's go Falcons.
Bowling Green plus 35. If that makes the Twitter picks, that has some sicko potential. I'll have to think on that
Do
again
it.
when I haven't had a bourbon in me.
There you go. There you
I have
go.
to think about that. Buffalo Trace free mind.
That's right.
Gotta have a clear mind for that one.
That's right. All right. Mike, week 2, you have Duke Northwestern under 37.5 locked up. We both have Tennessee minus the 8 against NC State locked up. I feel like I need to find one more here. There were a couple of candidates that I had.
You had Northwestern potentially. You liked Virginia potentially. I'm just naming the couple you mentioned.
I
as
think
we
I
were
like
going.
Auburn. I think I might lay the 13 with Auburn here.
Okay.
It's a pretty decent number inside the 14 number. Let's lock up Auburn minus the 13 against Cal.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Please.
It's the only game you and I really had a heated debate on. I mean, we kind of
Yeah.
screwed around and had a debate on UNC Charlotte, but that doesn't really count.
Yeah.
And Virginia Tech
you know-
Marshall, you and I just kind of threw up our hands. So that doesn't really count either. So I think our only real debate tonight where we were like totally different was Auburn Cal. So I think it's fitting you lock that one up.
I mean, again, I made controversial picks, taking Marshall, taking Charlotte, taking App State.
That's not controversial. I'm in agreement.
I don't have enough conviction in any of those to
No.
actually lock them up.
You had more
So-
conviction in Auburn than any of the other two. In the Marshall Virginia Tech game and the Charlotte North Carolina game, you and I were both like, "Oh, you make a good point there. You make a good point there." So it's like,
The other thing I could do, I could also lock up Pitt money line against Cincinnati.
Jesus, that's just sick.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't you do it? It's week 2. Why don't you do it? I mean, you're going to go from only having one pick to having one more than I do.
You only live once, Mike. Pitt outright against Cincinnati. Lock it up.
Lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Please.
Pat, don't mess it up. Don't mess this up.
I'm good with my 2. There's a little peer pressure there, but I'm not picking another one.
Fair enough. I would have been tempted by that under, but 37.5. My goodness, that'll be a nice Friday night sweat for you.
Some people call it a sweat. Some people call it a lock, Joey.
There's a small but important difference between a sweat and a lock.
One wins you money. The other one might.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. All right. There you have it. Tennessee minus the 8 for the both of us. Mike has under 37.5 in Duke and Northwestern. I have Pitt outright against Cincinnati, and I also have Auburn minus the 13 against Cal. So those are your locks of the week. Mike, one of the things we haven't really done a good job of publicizing, we probably need to do a better job of, is on these previews. Something that would be really helpful for us and is a really good job, a really good opportunity for the people to interact is as you see things through the weekend, as you watch these games, things on, especially on Twitter, whatever, use hashtag GoACCMOTW to submit award nominations, ideally Go ACC Moment of the Week candidates, but could also be, Brian Van Gorder Memorial You Tried Awards, could be Kobe Bryant Memorial Volume Shooters of the Week Awards, whatever it is. Send them all to us. Hit us with those on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever it is. We would love the people to send their submissions in. So hope they do that starting here in week 2.
Please do that. I mean, there's nobody else on the internet using hashtag GoACCMOTW.
That's right.
We're it. We've established that hashtag. So, please do that. That'd be very helpful. And then the other awards, like Joey mentioned, just tag us. Tag the podcast account, tag Joey and I. Most of the listeners are now following us on social media, just like our individual accounts. So go do that. I mean, as long as you tag us, we'll get to them. We'll see them. So, yeah, definitely do that.
Love and appreciate the participation and the collaboration here. So thanks to the folks who do that. We'd love for you to help us with that. Mike, anything else before we get out of here and go watch some games?
One more thing, more somber note. Didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I need to mention this. Virginia Tech's VP of Player Personnel, Mike Villagrana, his daughter was diagnosed with cancer, 6-year-old daughter.
Ooh.
Joey, you and I are parents, and you don't have to be a parent, obviously, to kind of empathize with the situation, right? There is a GoFundMe page that was started by a friend of the family to help raise money to pay for the medical expenses for his daughter. I will share it with the podcast account. I came across it a couple nights ago, so by the time you guys listen to this, I came across it last night, but by the time you listen to it a couple nights ago, I will share it on our podcast account. I'm trying to get this out to as many people as possible, both inside the Virginia Tech fan base and outside of it, because as a parent, I read that and I was devastated about it. You don't want to go through that. Parents shouldn't have to go through it. A kid shouldn't have to go through it. So I'm going to share the GoFundMe. If you feel compelled to donate to it. I think it's a really good cause, obviously, to help a family in need in the ACC community. So I just wanted to go ahead and share that, Joey.
As a parent, I cannot imagine going through something like that. I mean, that's horrendous to have to endure. But any support that you all can share would be incredible, whether monetary or just words of encouragement or anything else. Would be wonderful. So really appreciate the community supporting us on that.
Yeah, and I'll have Scott put the GoFundMe in the show notes as well. So we'll tweet it out, and most of you are on social media, so that'll probably be the easiest way to get to it. But for those of you who are not, I'll put the link in the show notes so you can go ahead and get to it.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing too that can be really financially debilitating over the long term. So it's one of those things where every little thing helps. Appreciate the folks that are able to help with that in any way, shape, or form, whether monetarily or otherwise.
And the GoFundMe said it's going to be like a couple years worth of treatment for her is like the initial plan. So, every little bit helps for sure. So.
Yep, absolutely. Mike, anything else before we work on getting out of here?
No, I think we're good. We'll see about that Pittsburgh lock of yours. That was some hashtag sick shit, as we say. Disgusting pick. So
See, we will. We will. Look, hey, don't ever tell me that I'm a Pittsburgh hater. Okay, I'm buying them on the road, out of conference, the whole thing. I got them.
There's a Scott Satterfield Award in there somewhere. We'll find. Just give us some time.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, let's get out of here. Let's go watch some games. Mike, you and I probably come back and recap these games live, YouTube, like what, midnight Eastern, thereabouts?
It'll be around midnight Saturday night. I'm on the desk until midnight, so yeah, it'll be around midnight, and it'll be around midnight moving forward because I'm on the desk until midnight for the foreseeable future. So kind of the same schedule as last year.
Yep. So hopefully, I'd imagine a lot of our audience still up that time of night. So grab your nightcap, come hang out with us. Talk about the day that was in the ACC. A lot of games we've got to talk about here, more than we've ever had before between Friday and Saturday nights. So come join us in the chat and share us with your friends. We'd really appreciate that. YouTube.com/@the-ACC-football-podcast. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, hit the like button. We'd appreciate that as well. That helps us a lot. That's kind of the big point of emphasis this year is YouTube and trying to boost those numbers as much as we can. So really appreciate the folks that are able to help us with that, however you do. Mike, we're on Twitter at FJSJoey, at Mike McDaniel SI, at BC Podcast ACC. Send us an email, questions, comments, concerns, to the longest email address known to man, basketballconferencepodcast@gmail.com.
Nailed it.
Thank you. You want to tell the people where they can find us on the social medias?
Facebook.com/basketballconference, rate, review. Find some of our podcasts there. We're posting some stuff on Instagram. Scott's been doing a good job of putting those up there. The Instagram shorts at BC Podcast ACC. Firing that back up. Like I mentioned, I'll fire my picks off on Twitter. My handle is there at Mike McDaniel SI. I'll fire those off. Joey mentioned the YouTube, and cannot emphasize that enough. The YouTube is what we're really pushing this year. We've seen the numbers on audio. We have a good base on audio. It's been there for a while. We're trying to really push it on YouTube because not a lot of people listen to both. Some of you all do, and we appreciate it, but not a lot of people listen to both. And I think expanding the YouTube is an area we've identified as one that would bring us a lot more listeners, even as we've experienced this growth. So go check out the YouTube and subscribe and share with your friends, and word of mouth is a big deal. So that would go a long way to helping us. So.
Yep. Absolutely. Mike, that's all I got. Anything else before we get out of here?
See you Saturday night. There are a lot of fun games to recap here, I think, at least on paper. We'll see if any of them actually come home to roost, as they say.
We've got some underdogs outright. We've got some big favorites that we are fading. It's going to be interesting to see how it works out.
Some fun non-cons.
That's right.
There will be some jokes, for sure. There will be some jokes.
100%.
Yeah.
I think they'll all be about you. I think my picks are right, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's always what happens. Certainly.
Yeah. Always what happens.
Always.
We will see. All right, come join us about midnight Eastern, youtube.com/@the-ACC-football-podcast. We'll see who was right and who was wrong, and it'll probably be me that was wrong, but we'll find out then.
We will.
Mike, enjoy the games. We'll talk then.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, for that guy, Mr. Mike McDaniel, I'm Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will talk to you again very, very soon to recap Week 2. Enjoy the games. Until next time, go ACC.